welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is part 2 of my ranking video for Victorian books that I have read. If you haven't seen part 1, I will link it here so that you can watch part 1. In this video, I am going to share with you the ranking of the 4 and 5 star Victorian books that I have read. And coming in at number 38 on my ranking list is A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Now, I had to give this one 4 stars because it's the first Sherlock Holmes, and I love the part where Sherlock and Dr. Watson meet, and there's just so much about it that I like. I really don't like the middle part where he's in Utah. I mean, I was like, what is happening here? But I just liked it enough that I still gave it 4 stars. I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan, and so I still had to give it 4 stars. Coming in at number 37 is The Mystery of a Hansom Cab by Fergus, Hume. This is an Australian book that was written in 1886, and I read this one last year and I really enjoyed this one. It had like all the atmosphere, you know, the gaslight and the mystery of what happened in this cab. This cab shows up at the police station and there's a man dead in the back of the cab, and so then the investigation ensues. I liked the characters, I liked the mystery. I just thought that it was really clever. Coming in at number 36 is Called Back by Hugh Conway. I read this one years ago and I'm due for a reread, I believe, of this one because it was a good mystery. And this one is very unknown. I've never heard anybody talk about, so I'm going to let you know what this one is about. By the purest of accidents, a blind man inadvertently stumbles across the scene of a terrible murder. Though he cannot see what is happening, he can hear only too clearly, and when his sight is later restored, he is haunted by the memories of that fateful night. When he later encounters and falls in love with a mysterious woman who is in some way involved in the crime, the mystery deepens and leads our hero on an arduous journey to Siberia to track down the one man who can reveal the truth about what happened and unlock the secret to his future happiness. Mixing the elements of crime, mystery, and detection, Called Back was published in 1883 and rapidly became the best-selling book of its kind, selling 350,000 copies in its first year and launching an era of shilling shockers that lasted into the next century. Okay, coming in at number 35 is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. This is a play that is brilliant. It is fun, it is clever, it is witty, it is funny. I really enjoy this play. I am a huge fan of Oscar Wilde. I think that his writing is immaculate. He is amazing. He has such a way with words and he knows how to tell a very, very good story. 34 is An Ideal Husband, and 33 is A Woman of No Importance. There you go. So those are 3 Oscar Wilde plays that I really enjoyed. Okay, coming in at number 32 is Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. Here's what's funny about where this is ranked. You would think, for someone like me who loves mysteries, who loves sensation novels, that this would be ranked higher than it is. And on a reread, I think that it will be. The thing is, I've read this a number of years ago and I can't remember it at all. I can't. And so I had to leave it at number 4. And because I couldn't remember anything at 4 stars, and because I couldn't remember anything of it, it's actually kind of high on my, it's lower down on my list of 4-star reads because I can't remember anything about it. So I need to reread it because I hear people talking about it all the time, and Mary Elizabeth Braddon is an author that I want to read more from. So, but for right now, it's sitting at number 32 on my ranking list. Number 31 is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. This is one that I have read numerous times and I just enjoy it. I love the themes of this and what he was playing around with in this story, and so that's why it is number 31 on my list. Coming in at number 30 is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a collection of short stories, and earlier in my life I would have said flat out I don't like short stories. But within the last few years, I've come to realize that I actually do. I just have to be discriminating with short stories the same way that I'm discriminating with any book that I read. I like some and I don't like others, and I've discovered that I really enjoy Sherlock Holmes short stories. And so The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is number 30. Coming in at number 29 is The Diary of a Nobody by two brothers, George and Whedon Grossmith. This is hilarious. I read this last year and I loved it. It was really funny. It's told in the diary format of this man who wants to advance in society, and he has a job at a bank, and like the stuff that he gets up to it's just very funny, very well written, and I love that the illustrations are included in the story as well. Okay, coming in at number 28 is The Dead Secret by Wilkie Collins. I could not find my copy of this, so I'm gonna have to put a picture here. This is right now my least favorite of the Wilkie Collins that I've read, but I gave it 4 stars and I still really loved it. So make of that what you will. This one was, you know, a woman is dying at the beginning, and she shares a secret with her maid, gives her maid a letter, and the rest of the story is what happens because of that. And it was enjoyable. Okay, coming in at number 27 is Gothic Tales by Elizabeth Gaskell. I just finished this a few days ago. I read some of these short stories last year, and then I finished it this year. And like with other short story collections, I liked some more than others, but I liked enough of them a lot that I ended up giving the entire collection 4 stars. It was very entertaining. Okay, coming in at number 26 is The Warden by Anthony Trollope. This is the first book in his Barsetshire Chronicles series, and I did really enjoy this. It's really short, but it has that Trollope writing that I love. I love the way he addresses the reader and pulls you into the story. I love his sense of humor, and I did really enjoy The Warden. Coming in at number 25 is East Lynne by Mrs. Henry Wood. And I have this old edition, which is fantastic, but not very interesting to look at. This is a sensation novel that I read a couple years ago, and I really did enjoy this one as well. And I totally can see myself reading that one again in the future. All right, coming in at number 24 is the Oscar Wilde short story collection that I just read a couple months ago. I buddy read this with Donna from Studio in the Library, and I enjoyed some more than others for sure, but on the whole I was reminded of how much I enjoy Oscar Wilde's writing. He is just beautiful, a beautiful, beautiful writer, and I love his stories and his way with words, and I loved delving into what are called his short stories, his fairy tales that are included in here, because ultimately they weren't really fairy tales. They were more fables or parables. And so I found that really interesting, and I loved talking about it with Donna. Coming in at number 23 is Windsor Castle by William Harrison Ainsworth. This is a historical romance, it's called, because it was written in the Victorian time period, but it's set in the 1600s, and it's about Henry VIII when he's with Anne Boleyn and trying to divorce himself from Catherine, and it has Hearn the Hunter, so there's supernatural elements in this story, and it was just a wild ride, and I loved it. Coming in at number 22 is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I'm actually sort of surprised this is sitting where it is on this list, because I've read it a number of times and I love it. I just love it. And I think on a reread it might move up on my rankings, but for right now it's at number 22. I have such a hard time ranking books, honestly, but I love A Christmas Carol. And I try to read it every Christmas if I can. Coming in at number 21 is North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I loved this one as well. This is one that I have read twice. I have it also in this gorgeous edition with some illustrations. This is one that I will be rereading in the future as well, and I could see it also moving up on my rankings list. Coming in at number 20 is Dracula by Bram Stoker. I've read this 2 or 3 times and I just really do enjoy it. It's Gothic-y and scary. I love the way that it's told through journals and diary entries and letters, and yeah, I'm a fan of Dracula. Now, I'm sure you're hearing some noise in this video. It's because there's guys in the backyard. They're laying a new sidewalk, and so I apologize for that noise if you can hear it. Coming in at number 19 is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I read this years ago, like 20 years ago at least, and I loved it. I found it so creepy and gothic and fantastic, and this is one that I definitely need to reread, and I could see it easily moving up in my rankings on a reread, because I do remember just really enjoying it. And now that I've read more of Oscar Wilde, you know, I love his writing style so much, I can see it moving up on the rankings on a reread. But for right now, it's number 19. Number 18 is The Mayor of Casterbridge by Thomas Hardy. This is where it is because I just read it, and although it is bleak, I did enjoy this one, and I think that it's because it is a little more plot driven than maybe some of his other books. I enjoyed the writing style. The story was interesting. I did not like the main character at all, Michael Henchard, but I think it's good writing when the author can bring out these emotions in you and give you, if you have strong feelings about a character, one way or the other, I think that's a sign of good writing. So that's why The Mayor of Casterbridge is where it is on my list. Coming in at number 17 is Jack Sheppard by William Harrison Ainsworth. This is another one that I just read. This is considered a Newgate novel because it is a story of a criminal. A criminal is the main character in the story, and you kind of live in that world of criminals. Again, William Harrison Ainsworth loved to tell historical stories, so even though he wrote it in the Victorian time period, it was set in the 1700s, and I did really enjoy it. It was a fun ride, very entertaining to read. Coming in at number 16 is The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This is my favorite Sherlock Holmes story so far. I have not yet read all of them. I've read a lot, but I haven't completed the whole oeuvre yet, and so but I really can't see anything knocking The Hound of the Baskervilles off the top of the list for me, because I love that it's set in Dartmoor, and it's creepy and gothic-y, and that's what I love about this story. And this is one that I definitely need to do a reread of, and again, it might move up on the rankings on a reread. Okay, and The Hound of the Baskervilles, you might be wondering why I'm including it on the Victorian the list of Victorian books, because it was published bound in the Edwardian time period, but it was originally serialized in the Strand magazine from August 1901 to April 1902, so I'm counting it as a Victorian book. Okay, and then the last of my 4-star books, this is The Legacy of Cain by Wilkie Collins. I love this edition. I got this book from my dad. He has a whole bunch in this edition, and I just think this is fantastic. This was a really interesting read. It opens with the death of a murderer in prison. She's executed for her crimes, but she has 2 daughters, and so he's really diving into nature versus nurture in this story, and I just really enjoyed it. It was very entertaining. Okay, the one and only 4.5-star book comes in at number 14, and that is Old St. Paul's by William Harrison Ainsworth. I cannot find my copy of this book, so I'm going to have to put a picture here. This is another one of his historical romances. It is set in London during the time of the plague and fires, so 1665 and 1666. This one was such a great story. It had great characters and adventure and great villains, and it was just such a good story. And what I loved was you know, the bits about how people reacted to the plague and what they did or what they thought they could do to protect themselves. I found really interesting. Okay, so we are there at my top favorite Victorian books. These are my 5-star Victorian books. I have attempted to rank them, which is always really difficult, but let's get into it here. Coming in at number 13 in this fantastic edition that I got from my grandmother, from Erin's grandmother. This is The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. I have read this at least 3 times, maybe even 4. And I just love this story so much. It's set in Massachusetts in the 1600s, and it tells the story of Hester, who is discovered because she is pregnant out of wedlock and must wear a scarlet letter A on her clothes to let everybody else know that she is an adulterer. But it's such an interesting story. You know, the themes in there of, you know, Puritanism and sin and forgiveness, and it's just a really great story, and I love it a lot. Coming in at number 12 is Can You Forgive Her by Anthony Trollope. I read this, I believe in January of this year. It's the first in the Palliser series, and I loved it. Coming in at number 11 is The Beadle by Richard Marsh. This is kind of a sensation Gothic-y horror story that came out the same year as Dracula, and I loved it. It was great. Like, there was the descriptions of the beetle climbing up the narrator were so creepy. This was just a fun read, and I enjoyed it a lot. Coming in at number 10 is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. I read this just a year or 2 ago, and I really did enjoy it. I really do like Elizabeth Gaskell's writing style. I can see myself rereading the books that I have read of hers, and I want to read the rest of what she wrote as well. I loved Elizabeth Gaskell. The characters in here were fantastic, and the plot was really interesting. I loved so much about that book, and so it's currently sitting at number 10 on my rankings list. Coming in at number 9 is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I've read this 2 or 3 times, and I do really enjoy this one. I love the character of Jane Eyre. I love the Gothic-y aspects of this when she goes to Thornley. Is it Thornley? Thornfield Hall, sorry, and I love the Gothic-y aspects of it. Yeah, it's just such a good book, and this is an abridged copy that I have, but I love this edition as well. Okay, coming in at number 8 is The Constable of the Tower by William Harrison Ainsworth. This is, again, a historical romance set in the Tower of London when it opens on the death of Henry VIII, and then we move quickly into the early reign of his son Edward. But the focus of the story is on the two Seymour brothers who are trying to gain control. I loved the historical aspect of this story, and again with William Harrison Ainsworth, it's just a fun ride. Coming in at number 7 is A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I read this years ago, like 20 years ago at least, and I just loved it. I loved the writing, I loved the themes, I loved the setting, I loved that it's set during the French Revolution, and that's a time period that I find just fascinating. So that could be one of the main reasons why I love this so much. I am definitely due for a reread of A Tale of Two Cities, and it could easily move up on my rankings list, but for right now it is sitting at number 7. Number 6 is Barchester Towers by Anthony Trollope. I also read this originally like 25 years ago, and I loved it. I remember that it was the first Victorian book that I've ever read that was funny. I didn't realize they could be funny. Up until that point in my life, I kind of always felt that they were a bit of a slog to get through. But I found it funny, and I really got on with how Anthony Trollope wrote. I didn't realize at the time that it was part of a series, that it was actually the second book in a series. I just read it and I loved it. And this is my Oxford World's Classics edition, and I just love this little book. Look at the naked hardback. Isn't that fabulous? So I am definitely due for a reread of this, and I can't see it knocking down on my rankings list at all. I can only see it potentially going up. Okay, here are my top 5. Coming in at number 5 is Poor Miss Finch by Wilkie Collins. I just read this year for Victober. I buddy read it with Miriam, and we had such a blast reading this book. The characters were great. There were characters that I loved. There were characters that I did not like at all. I loved the story of this. I loved how it was told. The narrator in this one, there's only one narrator in this one, Madame Pratolungo, and she was fabulous. Yeah, I loved it. I loved it. Coming in at number 4 is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. I recently reread this. I've read it now 3 or 4 times, and I love Wuthering Heights. I just do. Emily Bronte is amazing. She is an amazing writer, and it is so sad that we only get this one book from her, because she was amazing. I love the format of this. I love that it's a story within a story. Just her skills as a writer are unbelievable. I love that, you know, we get the story being told to Mr. Lockwood from the maid, and, you know, that we're so far removed from the actual events because of who's telling the story, and you get unreliable narrators, and it is dark and foreboding and gloomy. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. Okay, coming in at number 3 is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. This is fantastic. This is such a fantastic book. I love that it's told by multiple narrators. It's told like you're in a courtroom hearing from witnesses, and I think that that's really clever. And so the narrators tell what they know about what happened. At the beginning of this book, it's Rachel Verender's 18th birthday party, and she is given this jewel, the Moonstone, by her uncle. and that night the moonstone is stolen. So the story is who stole the moonstone and where is it, and it is just great. I love the characters, I love the way that it's told, I love the way that the mystery is revealed, and yeah, it's just brilliant. Number 2 is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. I just read this summer and loved it. It is a classic tale of revenge. This young sailor comes home from sea and wants to marry his love, but he is arrested and put in prison for 14 years without due process. And when he gets out of prison, he takes revenge, and it is just this great story of revenge. I love the way that it's told. I love the way that the story is revealed, and the themes and everything. I just loved everything about this story. It is a huge book to get through, but honestly, it was very pacey. And I took 2.5 months to read it, but it did not feel like a slog at all. I loved it. And coming in at number 1, this will be no surprise to you if you know me at all, and that is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins. I have read this now 3 or 4 or 5 times. I just love it. I love the story. I love how it's told. I love how Gothic-y it is. I just love it. I love the sensation elements of it. I love the characters. I love the villains. I love all of it. There you have it. That is my ranking for right now of the Victorian books that I have read. And it was really hard to rank them within their star rating. The 13 5-star books that I've read, it was hard for me to rank them. And I can see this list changing. If I think about it more or do a reread of a book, I can see it moving up on the list. But let me know in the comment section down below, what is your favorite Victorian book that you have read so far? I would love to hear. Also, I would love to know if, if you've read any of these books, would they be somewhere wildly different in your own ranking of the books? I would love to hear about that as well. And I will see you for another video soon. Bye.